Hey guys, what's up? Toboloco here, and today we're going to be talking about what I want from the 2022 World Cup game, or DLC. It's yet to be confirmed yet. We're still about a year away from it. And of course, looking back on the 2018 DLC for FIFA 18 and seeing what could be improved on it, and actually looking back on it and things that I've missed from it, because I feel like I was a little bit too harsh on it. I played it this morning, I re-downloaded FIFA 18, and there was a few things that actually caught me by surprise, so I'm going to go through them and I'm going to elaborate on some points and hopefully give you guys a decent video of what next generation World Cup should be like. So like I said this morning, I booted it up, I booted FIFA 18 up, and I went back to the World Cup mode, just solely the World Cup mode. I didn't play any other FIFA 18 modes or anything, I just went on the World Cup mode. And what I first thought of it was how light it was, how there was no other modes apart from the World Cup mode, Ultimate Team. Ultimate Team was a big tile on the menu. It's a massive tile. They really wanted to force that in your face, the Ultimate Team. And Kickoff and Online Friendlies. That was literally it. There was no online scenarios. There was no Captain Your Country. It felt like a very gutted experience. But let me just say this. But when I was in the matches, a few things took me by surprise. They did say in the past that the 2018 FIFA World Cup game lacked atmosphere. I was a little bit too harsh on that. There is some moments in the game which actually do heighten the atmosphere, but I'm also very critical of some points on the atmospheres of the game. If we talk about, let's say, for example, the 2006, 2010 and 2014 World Cups, all those games have a distinct atmosphere because the game captures not only the nation that it's been held in, but it captures the carnival atmosphere of the different sets of fans that are in there. Now, for example, in 2010, for example, you've got the Vuvuzela draining in the background, droning on in the background sort of thing, and then you've got the crowds dancing, you've got, you know, the different types of crowds for each nation. Now in 2018, I did not realize this, but there is actually some diversity in the crowd, only slightly. I would feel that the 2018 World Cup game is slightly worse than the 2010 game in terms of crowd atmosphere. 2018, at the start of the match, you can see, for example, if you play as Iceland, for example, you got like I said in the previous video, you got the helmets, like the Viking helmets on and stuff like that. That's really cool, and each fan is different. And because it's a HD game and a next generation game, you've got every single member of the crowd is there, fully sort of rendered and doing their own thing, you know, sort of like what you see in NBA 2K, if you've ever played those games. The crowd are doing their own thing. It's not just the same, you know, sort of like sets of fans going forward and backwards sort of thing. So that's a point that I missed. And also, for example, Egypt, I played as them. They had like sort of the pharaoh hats on sort of thing. Very stereotypical, but very good by EA to include that. Also, what I wanted to talk to you guys about is that the game does have managers. It does. When I played the 4 games I played this morning, I saw Carlos Queiroz for Iran, and I saw Joakim Low for Germany. Now, every nation that qualified should have their manager on there because there's no excuse. It's a HD game, or whatever you want to call it. It's a next generation game. They should be able to include it. They did it for the Premier League. Why can't they do it for the 32 teams that qualified for the World Cup? You know, Senegal have the coolest manager in the world, but yet he's not on the game. But with the downfall of the managers, or the lack of managers in the game, you've also got the pretty graphics, you know, the HD graphics. You can see blades of grass, you can see like freckles on players' faces. You've got fully rendered Ronaldo and Messi and all your favourite players in there. And it looks great, it does look great, but what I'm saying is it's a little bit thin, and I'm going to be talking about in a minute what Qatar 2022 DLC or if ever a game can do to improve on it. Some of the commentary as well was actually pretty good. You know, I overlooked some of the commentary. You know, sometimes the commentary will like talk about, you know, how England didn't win the World Cup since 1966. You know, it's been like 50 years, and yes, it has. You know, and that's good, but it doesn't do it for every nation. And the thing is, what I want for the 32 qualified teams at least is to have their own identity. So when I was playing with England this morning, for example, didn't feel like they had their own identity, really, apart from like the players on the pitch, obviously. But I mean the crowd. The crowd obviously were dressed in England attire, but there was no horns, there was no trumpets. Do you know what I mean? Like, when you watch an England match, there's always one person in the crowd doing like the Rule Britannia on the trumpet, or singing Rule Britannia or something like that, and that's what sets the game apart. But when Germany scored against me, I heard a little glimmer of like a German song in the background, but it was very, very light. And that's the thing, the game lacks total atmosphere. It doesn't throw you into a World Cup atmosphere. Now, that may be because the mode that I was playing was just a kickoff mode, so it might have been just considered a friendly, but you know, and that's another thing as well. You, on the kickoff mode, you can't select the World Cup, quarterfinals, semi-finals, round of 16, third place playoff, group stage matches. You can only play a friendly. It's set in the World Cup stadiums and the World Cup, you know, themes and stuff like that, but it doesn't feel like a game that matters. Do you know what I mean? Now, it's time to talk about what I would like to see in Qatar 2022. So, the first thing is that I want to see solid gameplay, because actually I didn't touch on this on the 2018 one. The gameplay is solid. It is so solid. Like, it's FIFA 18. That's it. And me personally, I really enjoyed FIFA 18 as a game. I really thought that the passing was good, the shooting was good, the crosses was good as well. You know, there was not a lot wrong with it for me. I mean, if you're looking at like sort of FIFA 20 or FIFA 19 or FIFA 21, then that'll be a problem, because there's a lot wrong with those games. You're gonna need to have good core gameplay. You can't have the gameplay we've seen in FIFA 21 and FIFA 20. You can't have that, because people will just switch off, and then it would tarnish the reputation of the game, because EA recently have hurt their own reputation by bringing out these broken games that people do not like. So that's another thing I wanted to touch on as well, is Qatar 2022 game, or DLC, whichever, you know, it comes out, needs to have more modes. It needs to have Captain Your Country. It needs to let you play kickoff matches, you know, in the World Cup final, in the quarterfinal, semi-final. It needs more teams. It needs way more teams than what DLC 2018 did, you know. That only had about 30, like what, 40, 50 teams in there, sort of thing. You know, you had your 32 qualified teams, and then they just chucked in a bunch of non-qualified teams in there that got fairly close. But they didn't put the non-qualified teams we wanted in there. You know, Syria got so close to the World Cup in 2018, so ridiculously close, and they didn't put them in there? Like, really? That was a missed opportunity right there. You know, you could have put more in there. You know, you're gonna have to, if it's a DLC, you're gonna have to put at least, you know, 60 or 70 teams in there minimum, or maybe 100. I'm not saying they have to, but for me, if it's gonna be a DLC, you're gonna have to, because you need a large pool of teams to play as. But if it's a whole game, you're gonna have to go all out and get all 216 teams, or however many there is on the planet, and get more teams, beat the 2014 game, and have more teams in there. So yeah, you know, more teams obviously, and fully licensed as well, or as licensed as possible. We can't have unlicensed teams like we did in 2008 when we had the Netherlands, which were completely unlicensed. That was a failure there. That was, the game wasn't a failure, but the licensing issues on that game kind of like marred it a little bit. It kind of made it feel like it wasn't a complete experience. Whereas the 2010 one, at least if you knew a team was unlicensed, at least they had their crest, they had their badge, they had the fans, you know what I mean? It helped add to it. But yeah, like I said, more modes. You know, you need penalty shootout mode, you need your training. If you're gonna go for a World Cup mode, don't just have the base World Cup starting from the group stage and going to the final. Have the qualifications, or if you really want to push the boat out, have the preliminary rounds in there as well. Have us actually manage the team from the bottom to the top. So you give us a player pool of all the national players that are eligible for that team or whatever. Like, say if you're playing as England and you've got like tons and tons of youth, you get to experiment with the youth. You get to sort of, you know, plan friendly matches, have qualification matches, you know, that sort of stuff. It doesn't have to be, you know, completely fully licensed, like to the point where, you know, you've set up a friendly with San Marino away from home and their stadium is exactly the same. All you have to do is do what you did in 2010 and just sort of reskin the stadium to make sure it looks like it would be in, you know, Europe or whatever, in Italy or San Marino, or you know what I'm trying to say. You know, just make it look like it. Immerse yourself in it. You know, make the player immersed in it. I know it's a sports game, but sports games work good if the player is immersed in it. And that's why I always love about 2K games. Even now, when I play 2K games now, I don't play 2K other than just to play a basketball game, just to play basketball against a computer or someone online. And I'm always immersed in that game because of what the crowd is doing, what the commentators are saying, and the stuff that's going on. It's very immersive. So I talked about the modes. It needs a lot more modes. I talked about immersion. It just needs to make you feel immersed in it, you know, the little details and all that sort of stuff. It needs to have more international teams, at least. Like I said, like 70 to 100 national teams, because you've got the 32 that qualified, and then, you know, you need more, obviously. It's hard to touch on what I want next. Maybe just like what you kind of see glimmers of in FIFA 21. I don't own the FIFA 21 Xbox Series X edition because I don't have a brand new Xbox. I don't think many people do these days at the moment. But when you see gameplay of it on YouTube, you've got like, you know, this really, really updated graphics, like 4K graphics. Like, imagine a World Cup game in 4K. Imagine that, you know, even if they use generic players for some of the supposed, you know, smaller nations. Imagine that. That would be amazing. That would be amazing. And they had like updated cutscenes, updated celebrations as well. You had your modes, like your online mode, the online World Cup mode, and your Ultimate Team if you're into that. You got your base World Cup gameplay as well. I personally think that it could be one of the best, and it could overshadow 2010 World Cup South Africa. But I don't know, like these days, like, you know, it's easy to talk about what you want, but what a business wants is more money. The 2018 DLC probably favoured EA more as a business because they just put it out. It was easy to put out. All they had to do was reskin some of the teams and all that sort of lot. Put some new stadiums in there. That's all they had to do. Maybe it took a couple of months, maybe, just to do all that. Get some new commentary in there as well. Boom. And what they did was very clever, as they had those base modes. It was very light, the base modes, but they had Ultimate Team, and that made people spend money on it. So they got their money for it, and then when it died, it boosted FIFA 18's economy from it. Like, if you get what I mean, like FIFA 18 already had great numbers for Ultimate Team. Like, you think because people are spending money on packs, and then you've got more people spending money on packs as well on top of that. I think that's the direction EA will go for. But you got the other side of the argument, well, they have all that money, why can't they just release a good, either like a good game or good DLC at least? I'm not saying that the 2018 World Cup game was bad, it was just light on the ground, it was just light. And that's the problem, it was just very light. Another thing actually that someone actually pointed out in the previous video when I did about the 2010 World Cup, which I didn't highlight but I should highlight now, it's just a small thing but it could make a difference. It's the soundtrack of a game. The soundtrack of South Africa really made you pumped to play the World Cup game. It made you pumped because there were so many good songs on there, and it was from, most of them were from African artists. Like, and they were so good. And it was the same with the Brazil World Cup as well. You got some like songs in there from like Pitbull and stuff like that. You know, it's very sort of like samba, Brazilian sort of style sort of thing. And in the 2006 World Cup, you've got you know, some European songs in there. You've got some techno in there as well. So do you know what I mean? Because I don't know what kind of music they listen to in Qatar or Middle Eastern areas, but there's surely some outstanding artists in that area that they could use, and then maybe, you know, just throw in a couple of like maybe slightly popular songs, maybe the official 2022 World Cup song. And this is my video, I guess, talking about what should be in the 2022 World Cup game or DLC. I hope you liked it. I didn't have a script at all. Again, I was just trying to talk from the heart and my experience this morning, because I figured if I played it this morning, the 2018 one, then I'd have a lot more ideas in my head at the current time to make a video and record it. But I really hope you've enjoyed this video anyway. If you did, then give it a like and subscribe. Put your comments down what you would like to personally see from EA out of a World Cup game in the future. You know, will they do it for 2022? Will they finally release a game, or will it be just DLC? Will they do it for 2026? Because that's USA and Canada, you know, bigger market possibly. I don't know. I'm not really sure too much on that. But anyway, this has been Toboloco. Keep it loco, and I'll see you again for the next video.